Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fantasyland. My name is Cole Altman, and I'm excited to be here back with all of you today for the third day in a row. And today, I just want to go over some tiers of players. I should have done this prior to drafts, but if you're interested, if you're in a trading league or in a dynasty league whatsoever, this could be helpful to you. So honestly, let's start off with quarterbacks. Let me just move my phone out of the way. I don't want. See, my cousin Zeke's doing a draft tonight, and he's been calling me a couple times to ask who he should pick, and he was deciding between Austin Eckler and Dalvin Cook as his first overall pick, and I told him if he didn't take Eckler, he was an idiot, because Dalvin Cook, injury prone, although he's a top 5 back, he's less of a lock than Austin Eckler, so I think Austin Eckler's definitely the move. And so he's been calling me a lot, and so I gotta take my phone away, make sure there's no buzzing. So we just got a little off topic, but back to topic. We'll start with quarterbacks. So I think the first tier of quarterbacks is pretty obvious. It's Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. I think that's a surefire top 2. I think they could either end as QB1. I don't think there's going to be a big difference at all between them. And honestly, they are both locks for that kind of production. Like, there's no question marks around them. There's no doubt around them. They both have amazing weapons, so I'd put them in the discussion for both having a big shot to end as the QB1. And then the second tier, I know a lot of people would disagree with me on this. I have Lamar, Jalen Hurts, and Pat Mahomes. And the reason Lamar and Pat Mahomes, I feel like definitely a lot of people agree that he belongs there, but Jalen Hurts, a lot of people would doubt that. And the reason I put him there is because of his elite rushing ability, which is just goes without saying, but he's also a TD goldmine. And what I mean by that is Matthew Berry said it perfectly. He is just going to have so many opportunities to get into the end zone this year, whether it be running the ball, passing to A.J. Brown, passing to Devonta Smith, Goddard, whoever you think, Gainwell, Miles Sanders. So you just have so many people who are basically magnets to the end zone. So Jalen Hurts honestly is a shot for a top 3 fantasy campaign this year, and he, in my opinion, definitely deserves to be in that second tier. So in my third tier, it's a little more, there's something sticky on my desk, and I don't know what it is. It's like some kind of sticker, and it's bothering my elbow. Back to the third tier. It's honestly a little more widespread. You guys like Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Brady, Burrow, Carr. You have guys like that, mid-range guys, mid-range to back-end QB1s. And the only surprise that I think people would take out of this one is that Kyler Murray is not in the second tier. And the reason I put him in the third tier is because he's not going to have D-Hop for the first 6 weeks. He's had some offseason issues. He has a clause in his contract that's going to make him have to watch 4 hours of film a week. And that just speaks a lot about his work ethic. And it's pretty disturbing. So I have him in my third tier. Brady's pretty much consensus third tier. So is Russ. Honestly, Russell Wilson is the one guy in this tier, and maybe even Joe Burrow, that I think could definitely have a tier 2 year. Russell Wilson, it just depends how his weapons turn out with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Javonte Williams. It just depends how that all turns out. So, and Joe Burrow, I mean, already has so many weapons with it, and that goes without saying. He has Higgins, Mixon, Chase, Hayden Hurst, but Hayden Hurst doesn't really belong in that discussion. But they have all those guys. So I think that Burrow and Russell Wilson both have potential to have those top 7 seasons. And Brady, we always doubt Brady, but he always finds a way to end top 5, top 7, especially in this new Tampa Bay offense. So never doubt him. And so the fourth tier I have Aaron Rodgers, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, and Kirk Cousins. I don't feel like there's much dispute there. And the reason I put Aaron Rodgers in the fourth tier, not the third, is because you could look at his games where Devontae Adams was not healthy, or Jordy Nelson was not healthy, or Randall Cobb was not there. He really struggled to find the end zone. So I don't bet on him to have a bad season, but I don't expect him to have a top 12 season. And that says a lot for Aaron Rodgers, who's been the MVP 2 straight years, and who's ended top 5 2 straight years, and who ended the QB1 in 2019. So honestly, Aaron Rodgers is a monster when he has his weapons, but I just don't know what to think about him. So at tier 5, I have some other guys. Fields, Winston, Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones, guys like that, back end to mid-range QB2s. And honestly, doesn't seem to be much dispute there, but I do want to bring up Justin Fields. I think people are doubting him just because of his lack of weapons. And I think that speaks to people's non-confidence in Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. I think they both have a lot of potential. They're both very young. Darnell Mooney showed flashes of it last year, and I don't think it's fair to put Justin Fields out of the discussion for having a low-end QB1 season just because he doesn't have weapons. And I think that Justin Fields, his rushing ability is insane. You looked at some of his rushing touchdowns last year, that 31-point game he had against San Francisco. I started him that week because I had to, and it made my day. So Justin Fields is really a slept-on quarterback. So I'd keep an eye out for keep an eye out for him and get him at the low when you can. So I really should have brought some water with me. Boy, am I parched. So at running back, you have tier 1. You have Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and Austin Eckler, and I don't think there's much dispute there. Some people would argue that Eckler does not belong in that tier 1, and I honestly think Eckler is going to end as the RB1. Jonathan Taylor's a monster. Christian McCaffrey's a monster, but Eckler honestly just has so much volume, so much sheer volume. There's no reason he couldn't go for 20 touchdowns again this year. There's been no changes in the offense that have been hurtful to him, and Justin Herbert just keeps improving, so there's no reason he couldn't end as the RB1. So in the tier 2, I have Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, and DeAndre Swift. A lot of people would get upset that I don't have Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry in that tier, and here's why. Alvin Kamara has shown flashes of inconsistency in the last 2 years. He's just not a super consistent running back. I mean, he's guaranteed to have those 25 to 30-point weeks every couple weeks, and that's what you're getting when you draft Alvin Kamara, but you're also getting the sporadic 7 to 10-point weeks, which is just not what you want in your RB1. And so my tier 2 is Cook, Najee, Mixon, and Swift, and you pretty much have surefire production on all 4 of those guys. Like, there's not really one question mark. I mean, some people may consider Joe Mixon a question mark, but honestly, in this evolving Bengals offense, there's no reason he should be one. Lots of talking. In tier 3, you have Nick Chubb, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Barkley, Fournette, Kamara, and Henry. Doesn't seem to be a ton of dispute there. Some people would argue that Saquon Barkley could be tier 2 this year, and I would actually agree with that. Saquon Barkley, he didn't have an insane RB1 season in 2019 for no reason. He's obviously a great player. He's obviously deserves to be in that discussion. Just injuries and inconsistency have really lowered the bar for him. So I do think he could have a tier 2 season. And even with some rolls of the bounces, he could have a high-end tier 2 season. But I don't see that. I just don't see it happening in the current Giants situation. But who knows? He could prove me wrong. He proved me wrong in 2019 when I didn't like him, and he may prove me wrong now. So in tier 4, I have so many guys, so many to list. I'll just name a few key names: Javonte, Cam Akers, A.J. Dillon, Jacobs, Edmonds, Gibson. So you have all these RB2, low-end RB2 guys, and obviously I don't really see any big standout guys, but I do think it's important we talk about Javonte Williams. And the reason I think that he doesn't deserve to be higher than tier 4 is because Melvin Gordon really has taken a lot of the touches in preseason, and in not preseason, camp. And it's looking to be a 1A, 1B situation there, and Javonte does not have the surefire starting job, which makes sense because Melvin Gordon is a good running back. You saw it when he was on the Chargers. He put up great numbers when he was on his own. I think he would as well if he was on his own. But Javonte, if Melvin Gordon goes down, he's a top 7, top 10 running back. But if he doesn't, he's a tier 2 guy if Melvin Gordon goes down. And Melvin Gordon is a tier 4, maybe tier 3 guy if Javonte goes down. But Javonte just makes me nervous. There's no lock there. And same thing with Zeke Elliott. There's no lock there because Pollard's really evolving. I would not be shocked if we saw Pollard having a better season than Ezekiel Elliott, and I hope he does because I love Tony Pollard. And A.J. Dillon as well. I wouldn't be shocked if A.J. Dillon ended better than Aaron Jones, and that's not a shot at A.J. Dillon's skill. That's a shot at Aaron Jones's production, and I think that it could go down with A.J. Dillon's eruption last year and his role, 1A, 1B role. And yeah, I just do think he could a lot of those guys in tier 4 have a ton of upside. And getting into tier 5, I mean, you have guys like Hilaire, Pollard, Rashad Penny. I mean, you have guys who knows what's going to happen with those guys. They could be great. They could be terrible. You never know. But Pollard, I don't see being terrible. But Hilaire, I have on my team as my RB3. I'm really begging that he doesn't screw it up. But who knows? He could be a league winner. He could lose his job to Pacheco, as Marcus Altman was so generous to text me today. So, honestly, tier 6 really doesn't have any notable names, so we can move on to wide receiver. Honestly, if you had a gun in my head or a lie detector test and said, is there any shot that these 3 receivers end outside the top 3? I'd say absolutely not. Jefferson, Kupp, and Chase. I don't know who's going to end at 1, and I don't know who's going to end at 3. I think the surefire bet right now is for Jefferson at 1, Kupp at 2, and Chase at 3. But I'm biased because I love Jamar Chase and I have him on my team. So I think that it wouldn't be wild to assume that Chase could end higher than 3. But Jefferson is just such an automatic producer that he could end as the number 1 player in fantasy this year. And Kupp may take a step back, and I do think he will end at wide receiver 3, which sucks. No, I'm kidding. Cooper Kupp's a monster. But also at tier 2, I really don't think these guys will end. I wouldn't say it's a lock that they end 4, 5, 6, but Adams, Diggs, and Lamb, I don't see any of them ending outside the top 8, never mind the top 6. Keenan Allen's great. He's tier 3. He's a consistent beast. Mike Evans will get the targets for the first 5, 6 weeks while Chris Godwin readjusts. Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. You never know how that's going to unfold with a mediocre quarterback in Tua. But I mean, you have Deebo Samuel, and I do want to discuss Deebo Samuel for a second because a lot of people, I've been talking about how I think Deebo Samuel is going to take a drop off into the bottom 15, and well, not bottom 15, but he's right outside my top 15, and a lot of people think that's way too far out for him, and I just don't agree. I think Trey Lance is not a throwing consistent quarterback. He's like a Justin Fields. He's not an amazing thrower, but he's an amazing runner, and he really doesn't have the throwing talent right now to support a top 10 fantasy season. Now, Deebo has the talent, but that was the only season he's ever done that kind of production. And I don't think it makes sense or it's logical to bet on that kind of production again with no multi-season evidence to back that up. And so I have Higgins and Moore. By the way, DJ Moore is going to be an absolute monster. DJ Moore, best QB play of his career, although Sam Darnold really was a fun guy to watch. Baker Mayfield has supported big fantasy seasons before in Odell Beckham, and I just don't know how you're going to see that. How you're going to see a difference from DJ Moore. It's the best. He was wide receiver 18 last year. He was wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 through the first 4 weeks, the first 5 weeks actually. And I don't know what it is. He has so much talent, and with an upgrade at QB, why wouldn't he take the next step? So DJ Moore, I have him on my team. I value him as a low-end wide receiver 1. He honestly has a shot to jump into wide receiver 1 territory. But I think it's safest to take him as a high-end 2. So in tier 4, I have guys like Waddle, who I don't think deserves to be there, but I kind of have to or else I'd get yelled at. Deontay Johnson, A.J. Brown, Sutton, Mike Williams, who, Marcus, if you're watching this, he's not that good. Terry McLaurin, Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson, who I am super high on, by the way. I think he will hurt Cooper Kupp a little bit. He's going to take away some targets. Allen Robinson was pretty much QB-proof for a long time until last year. So I don't think it's fair to undersell his value in fantasy, and I think he could be really good. And same thing with Marquise Brown. As much as Marquise Brown, his role may be silenced a little bit when D-Hop comes back, he's going to get the short passes, and he's going to get a lot of targets a game no matter who's there. And so Marquise Brown is a safe bet for wide receiver 2 production, and could honestly have wide receiver 1 production throughout the first 6 weeks without D-Hop. And in tier 4, there's one guy who I honestly think I may date, Drake London. he's just unbelievable. I've been watching film of him. He's so athletic. He's so big. He's like a Calvin Johnson, Megatron, to be honest. And I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Megatron, but especially with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. But I don't know. Drake London really stands out to me. He's the most well put together and balanced wide receiver in the draft easily this year. And if you can get him in a dynasty league, he should be at the top of your radar. He's going to be an automatic wide receiver for years to come. And at tier 5, you have Juju, Metcalf, MT, Judy, Rashad Bateman. So you have a lot of these dime a dozen guys who are going to be a lock for wide receiver 3 production, maybe low end wide receiver 2. But these guys, especially guys like Amari Cooper, Eli Moore, Renfro, Ayuk. No, not Ayuk. Ayuk I love this year. And I think Trey Lance and Ayuk have had a bond during camp. Lots of great reports at a camp for Ayuk, and I think he could have a monster year. And here's my hot take. Here's my hot take that I will end on, because honestly, I'm losing my voice. And there's not much to say about tight ends, but there's not much I didn't say about tight ends in the last podcast. I talked about Pitts and Kittle and Kelsey, so that's who I'd talk about. So here's my hot take to end. Brandon Ayuk ends equal to or better than Deebo Samuel. Thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. See you next time on Fantasyland.